Ahoy there, YouTube! I'm back again today for another delicious list, and today I'm very excited to be taking you and me into a time capsule. We're going to go back to 2011 and Essen Spiel Fair in Essen, Germany. We're going to be taking a look at the top 10 games in hindsight from that year's Essen. And I want to give a huge shout out to Robert Buciak, who had the Essen 2011 ranking tracker, made it so much easier to compile this information. But starting off at number 10, we have one of my favorite solo games of all time, and the number 443 game of all time. So the top 10 games from Essen 2011. This was a banger of a year, because we're already at the number 443 at number 10. That's Friday. This one's from Friedman Friese, one of the most interesting game designers on the planet, in my personal opinion. And you can see he had Power Grid in 2004, Fauna, Familia, Friday, Fabled Fruit. He's got Power Grid was his magnum opus in the top 50, but this one's in the top 500 as well. Fabled Fruit, I know, is much beloved. Very prolific game designer. I imagine there was a lot of buzz about this game, and I imagine it lived up to the hype, because this game would go on and inspire a lot of other games too. I definitely think you can see the fingerprints of this game on Robinson Crusoe, which I absolutely adore from Portal Games. But, so yeah, number 10. Starting strong Friday, and I believe this one's still in print. I think you can probably still get this one. Next, we move on number 9. We have Flashpoint Fire Rescue. A more thematic game than we see on a lot of the Essen lists. Typically, this one is number 9. Coming out from Edie Board and Cards. And I remember this is when they were on fire. Because I remember the year before, or 2 years before, I believe they had... what was it? Let's go years released. They had the really, really popular one. The Resistance. Yeah, so they were Resistance. They had Resistance out. You know, Triumvirate, which was 3,300, so that did very well as well. Haggis. And then Flashpoint Fire Rescue. I imagine there was a lot of buzz about this game. They'd go on to make the Resistance Avalon. Massively popular. They were just gravy train with biscuit wheels at this point. And this is still a great cooperative game. I'm more of a Pandemic fan, personally myself, but I know this has had a lot of expansion content, and this is a lot of people's gateway game. You know, a lot of people have Pandemic, a lot of people have Flashpoint Fire Rescue, and it re-implements Flashpoint, which was, 2010. So he came out with that the year before, and he refined it. Interesting. I did not realize that. So this was a self-published one from the Game Crafter. Love the Game Crafter. All right, very cool start to the list. Moving on to 2009. So we're moving on now on to our number 8 game. And we have The Manhattan Project from Brandon Tibbetts and Minion Games, which makes me sad because it was ran by the late, great James Matthew, I do believe was his name, and I should know his name. He helped me out a lot when I was first starting, used to donate a lot of stuff. But they had a lot of big hits. They had 3 games in the top 1,000. Well, that one's number 1,057. But Manhattan Project, huge game. Designer Brandon Tibbetts. Let's see where he was. Was he a known commodity at this point? Was this his first time design? Let's find out. So, 2013, what do we got? Where's 2010? Is this not in chronological order? That doesn't make any sense. This is 2012. So yeah, I think this is probably his first game then. Since this was, So yeah, this was his first design, and he really crushed it here. Still, number 377 game of all time. I wonder if this one was having some buzz, though, in 2012. Where was Minion Games in that point? You know, I'm really curious. Was this one of the ones that helped launch them off? Or was this one of the ones that, you know, just kept the buzz going? So let's go back. So where Hegemonic came out the next year, we have Manhattan Project Expansion, 2013. So 2012, we had Tahiti. I think that game's underrated. I like that. It's a fun little pick up and deliver game. Venture Forth. None of these are really rocking the needle too hard. Five Fingered Severance, 16,000. Grave Business, 12,000. Nile Deluxe, or 3,400. So they had ups and downs, but mostly downs, it looks like. So this was really one that I imagine helped catapult them, because from that point on, they would have some pretty big hits, as you saw. So yeah, Dead Men Tell No Tales. So that's awesome. So that was kind of like a little bit of a launching off there in Essen, 2011. And now, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We're going to the number 7 game. Game that I really do enjoy an awful lot. That is Takanoka for Antoine Bauza, my favorite game designer of all time. And this was when he was absolutely on fire because the previous year he had the hottest game at Essen with 7 Wonders and Hanabi. He had 7 Wonders and Hanabi. Now, Hanabi was not an Essen release. I believe that was probably a Gen Con release a little bit earlier in the year. But in the same year, Hanabi, 7 Wonders. Next year, coming out with Takanoka. Just absolutely on fire. Absolutely on fire, and I imagine this was a very, very highly anticipated game, especially with the absolutely gorgeous components, you know, and it lived up to the expectations. This is still one that I get to the table probably once every few months, because there's a couple people in my game night who really like this game, and I really like it as well. I never say no. So that is number 7 game of Essen, 2011. Moving on to number 6, we got Dungeon Pets, the follow-up from Varstadel. I feel like I mispronounced that. I do apologize. To Dungeon Lords, which was one of the top 10 games in 2009 Essen. And this, he also had Mage Knight and Pictomania in the same year. And Mage Knight, woo! Well, we'll get there. We'll get there. So this was one of the games that he released at Essen that year. And Dungeon Pets, this one I don't hear too much about anymore. I don't know if this one's been reprinted recently. I definitely have heard it's a much drier game. But still, sitting at the number 248 game of all time, the number 71 thematic game of all time. Very impressive. Dungeon Pets. And I imagine that one had a big buzz, and people weren't disappointed. Moving on, we have Village. Re-implemented by My Village. So they did redo this in 2015. Okay. And this one is from Inca brand and Marcus brand. So let's check them out. All right. Designing brother, sister, or couple, I'm assuming. No, I think those pictures. Oh, that's cool. When you have them right next to each other, it's the same picture, but it's just that's cool. Okay. Anywho, I'm very easily distracted. So they're a designing couple. This is awesome. Where were they in their designing career? I'm excited. I'm excited to see this. All right. So way back when. So we had, the first one's a Haba game. Okay, I love me some Haba. These ones aren't our rank. So the first one was 15,000. Didn't quite hit the mark, 19,000. All right, so things, game design-wise, they were not quite clicking there. Most people would say, based on the rating there. And then we hit, wow, this is a fun journey. So then 1580. This was the first big one that really probably put them on the map in 2008. You know, being a 1580 ranked game now, 14 years later, tells me that was a very probably popular game when it came out. And you always got to look at it from the time capsule perspective of how long ago this was. And then this one, 17,000. So that one, not too many people big on it. Ligretto Dice, 9,600. So these ones are much more miss. 10,000 and then 10,000. So there was probably not much buzz, I'm going to guess, for Village after a string of, ones that just weren't hitting the mark. And then bam, crushing it with Village. Number 5 game of Essen, 2011. And that's why it's so cool to see, and Essen Spiel put this out, and it probably did very, very well. Cool. Because, I mean, if they redid it, if you redo it, it means you're doing something there. And I still hear people talking about Village. I have never played Village. All right, moving on to the number 4. Ora et Labora by Uwe Rosenberg, who many people would consider to be the GOAT. I mean, I can't really argue when you have 6 games in the top 100. Like, when I actually have to click to see if you have more than 6 games in the top 100, that's absurd. That is absolutely absurd. And granted, Agricola is the revised edition, but whatevs. I'll count it. And this is Ora Labora. So this is like one of those ones, like it's 165. 60 to 180 minutes, and I imagine that, let's see where he was in his career at this point. We had so we had Agricola in 2007, La Havre in 2008, At the Gates in Loyang, Mercator, let's see. So what was his year before release was 1200, so it was not, people were probably like, yeah, it was really good, but it's not his best. And there's a lot of game designers who have games like that, and that's not a negative thing to say when you release something that's so good. It's just reasonable. People say, it's my 3rd favorite game by this person, but they have so many. So I imagine there was a lot of hype around this one. Lived up the expectations. When's that new? That looks like a newer video. 4 months ago, people still making content on it. That's the time. You're doing something right there. So the number 4 game of Essen 2011, Ora Labora from Uwe Rosenberg. Moving on to number 3. We're going to crack the top 100 yet? Not quite. Number 102, that's Trajan. This one is Stefan Feld, another one that a lot of people would say probably their favorite game designer of all time. And 16, 103, 236, 338, 328. I love them both, honestly. But let's see where he was in his career. Because remember Aquasphere. Aquasphere did not hit the mark that year. Was this pre or post Aquasphere? Because remember Aquasphere was one of the games that I was most excited to try out. And then I was like, it wasn't for me. All right, so where were we in our career? So 2011. So Luna came out the year before. Still ranked in the top 600. Very, very popular. It Happens. Top 5,000. And then we have this one. 102. But yeah, we have a pretty good pedigree here. 377, 1637, 27, 28. I imagine 326, 338. I imagine that a lot of people were very excited about this game right here. And Trajan lived up to the hype. Number 102. Which means, most likely, 2 games from Essen 2011 that were released are in the top 100 board games of all time. Let's go. Number 2 is Eclipse, which I know was just redone a couple years back, maybe 4 years back, I'm going to guess. 2 years back. So this one's definitely still relevant. And a lot of people, there used to be a big argument, Twilight Imperium versus Eclipse. And I've never played Eclipse, so I can't speak to it. I want to play it one day. Overall, ranked number 62, strategy 56, one of the best games of all time, 60 to 100 minutes. Designed by Tuku Takoleo. I apologize. I pronounced that terribly. But let's see where they were in their design career. All right. So 61, man, that's awesome. All right, years released, 2011. So take me back. 2011, not first design. So 2009, 16922, 10,722. So first 2 games not set in the world in first 3 games. But then we had Walnut Grove, 1403. I imagine this one garnered a good deal of buzz. 2.2K ratings. And that's a number that I can start looking at a little bit more. So this one was a pretty popular hit. And it had some legs, 2002. Then Princi Rialto. So I imagine there was some excitement, some buzz about this one for sure when he said he was going to make an epic space game. And sure enough, number 62 game of all time, Eclipse. I imagine that was when people were running to go pick up when that was released. And of course, Tommy V, 10 years ago with the review. Love Tom Vassell. Oh my gosh, I want to play that game. It looks so good. Anywho, but there's one more. What was the number 1 game from Essen 2011? Once again, thanks in part to the amazing Robert Buciak, who made the Essen 2011 ranking tracker, which I'm using, and I will link down below in case you want to check it out. The number 1 game of all time, which we already mentioned it earlier, from Vlada Shvatel. So we had 2 of the top 10 games released at Essen that year. That was Mage Knight, the board game, which is still the number 30 game of all time. And for many solo gamers, their magnum opus, their best solo game ever. And I've heard so many solo gamers say that. I have played it myself. It's an absolutely delightful game. It's one of those games that I really wish I could just burn in my brain how to memorize and how to play it. It's fantastic deck building. It's very thematic. It has tons of strategy, replay, and I imagine that this was just insanely buzzed about. I imagine everybody was excited for this game because, once again, let's go back in our way back. Let's look at the hype for Vlada Shvatel games in 2011, and let's see what he was doing before that, because this was a designer. Yeah, so we're hitting some top 5,000. So 63, Through the Ages, Story of the Civilization, busted out with that. 2,200 there. So some hits and misses. Galaxy Trucker, one of the most beloved games of all time. Dungeon Pets, massively popular, released in the same year, but 2 years before that, there was Dungeon Lords, which is still a top 300 game of all time. So the buzz around this game was absolutely massive, I imagine, and it lived up to the hype. The number 29 game of all time. And the number 1 Essen 2011 release, Mage Knight, the board game. If you enjoyed this content, please be sure to click on that subscribe button down below. Also, let me know in the comments below if you have any ideas for lists or comments or anything like that. Please let me know. And thanks for your time, YouTube. Bye-bye.